The hidden rule that could end Leonor's reign. Dawn settles over Madrid before the city fully wakes. Stone facades still hold the night's cold. Flags hang without wind, and inside this quiet, the future of a nation is already awake. For Princess Leonor, visibility has always been part of the duty. Appear, stand, represent, but the most decisive forces shaping her reign were never meant to be seen. From the outside, Spain's monarchy appears defined by ceremony. Parades, oaths, uniforms pressed to perfection, yet continuity here is not sustained by spectacle. It is sustained by rules that are rarely spoken aloud. Rules designed to outlive individuals. Rules that do not bend for readiness, affection, or personal conviction. This is the living thread of continuity. Leonor was not born into a crown. She was born into a timetable. Spain's constitutional monarchy functions on an unbroken chain of legitimacy. Every link matters. Every pause is dangerous. Every deviation invites questions the institution cannot afford to answer. The public is taught to focus on succession as a destination, a future coronation, a moment of arrival, but the system does not think in moments. It thinks in alignment between law and perception, between domestic stability and international confidence, between the visible heir and the invisible readiness of the state itself. Here is the first misunderstanding. The crown does not pass when the heir is prepared. It passes only when the structure can absorb the transfer without strain. And that difference changes everything. Spain's constitution does not merely define who inherits. It defines when uncertainty becomes intolerable, when delay becomes risk, when patience begins to look like weakness. This is where the hidden rule begins to emerge. Leonor's role is not to signal desire or ambition. It is to remain perfectly compatible with continuity, even if that compatibility demands stillness rather than assent. At this level, power is not emotional. It is procedural. The monarchy learned this lesson the hard way. History has shown that premature visibility can destabilize an institution just as surely as absence. Too early, and the heir becomes a focal point for political projection. Too late, and the system appears brittle. So the rule is enforced quietly. The future must never move faster than the present can sustain. This is not written into speeches. It is not debated openly. But it governs every appearance, every absence, every carefully calibrated silence. At first glance, Leonor's path appears linear. Education, military formation, public oaths. But beneath that structure is a constant evaluation, not of her, but of Spain itself. Public confidence, regional tension, electoral cycles, economic pressure. Continuity is not abstract here, it is embodied in visible presence, measured against invisible thresholds. This is the first cliffhanger, though most never recognize it as such. The question is not whether Leonor will reign. The question is whether the institution will decide that the conditions ever fully permit it. Because there exists a scenario, rarely discussed, carefully avoided, in which the crown delays not out of crisis but out of caution. A delay long enough to change expectations. A pause long enough to reshape legitimacy. At 5 minutes into this story, the truth sharpens. The rule is not designed to stop Leonor. It is designed to protect the monarchy from her arrival at the wrong moment. That is the taboo Spain does not admit. In private briefings and institutional planning, succession is treated as a risk event. Not a celebration. Every transition carries exposure. Every exposure invites scrutiny. And scrutiny, once normalized, does not easily recede. This is why timing becomes the ultimate authority. Leonor's image is managed not to elevate her, but to preserve neutrality. She must symbolize future continuity without activating present debate. That balance is fragile. Too much visibility invites politicization. Too little invites doubt. And doubt is corrosive. This tension is noticed far beyond Spain's borders. In the United States, analysts read stability as predictability. A delayed succession is interpreted not as tradition, but as hesitation. In the United Kingdom, where monarchy survives through ritual precision, Spain's silence is observed carefully, as a different model but not an unexamined one. In Canada and Australia, constitutional monarchies understand the cost of misalignment. They know how quickly symbolism becomes constitutional friction. And in Germany, where monarchy exists only as history, Spain's careful choreography is seen as a test of whether inherited authority can still justify itself through restraint alone. By minute 8, the deeper mystery takes shape. What happens if the institution decides that no moment is ever ideal? What happens if protection becomes paralysis? This is not speculation. It is structural possibility. The monarchy is designed to survive individuals. including heirs. That is the quiet power, and the quiet danger, of the hidden rule. Leonor does not stand on the edge of a crown. She stands inside a system that may prioritize its own endurance over her eventual reign. At the midpoint, the strain becomes visible. Spain faces cycles of political fragmentation. Public trust in institutions fluctuates. Every symbol is weighed for unintended consequence. In such an environment, succession is no longer neutral. It becomes a signal, and signals are risky. This leads to the point of no return. If an institution delays long enough, the public stops anticipating transition and begins normalizing stasis. At that moment, the crown does not lose legitimacy through action, it risks losing it through inertia. This is the edge. 19 minutes into the story, the future threat is no longer abstract. A generation raised without a visible transition begins to question why continuity requires delay at all. Not rebellion, not outrage, just erosion. The hidden rule, designed to protect the crown, begins to test its limits. And so the final uncertainty emerges. If timing is everything, and timing is never perfect, then the greatest challenge facing Princess Leonor is not whether she is ready. It is whether the institution will ever decide that the moment is safe enough to let history move forward. The flags in Madrid still hang. The stone still holds the night's cold. And the future remains present, waiting for permission. The story is not finished. The rule does not end at visibility. It continues in every step Leonor takes, in every gesture permitted or withheld. Her education, her public appearances, even her leisure, all measured against invisible thresholds of timing and propriety. Every action signals alignment or risk, yet the calculation remains hidden from public view. The crown demands patience, not passive waiting, but disciplined restraint. To move too quickly is to invite scrutiny. To move too slowly is to risk irrelevance. This is where the system exerts its quiet authority. The heir's readiness is irrelevant, the institution's readiness is absolute. Spain's monarchy survives not by personal ambition, but by structural precision. International observers track these subtleties. In the United States, restraint signals governance stability. In the United Kingdom, it mirrors centuries of ceremonial apprenticeship. Canada and Australia see proof that continuity can coexist with modern expectations. Germany observes structural discipline, a lesson in legacy preservation. By minute 8, the stakes deepen. The hidden rule is deliberately opaque. It governs transitions not by law alone, but by calculated cultural and political equilibrium. Even within the palace, discussion is muted. Every advisor, every protocol officer, understands, premature action could compromise the institution itself. Silence and measured steps become tools of survival. By midpoint, the strain is palpable. Not as scandal, but as controlled tension. The system monitors itself, calibrating Leonor's exposure against perceived national and international readiness. At 14 minutes, the point of no return becomes clear. The longer the crown waits to act, the greater the chance the public internalizes delay as stasis. The monarchy's survival depends on balancing patience with inevitability, a perilous tightrope. By minute 19, foreshadowing becomes unavoidable. Political shifts, generational expectations, global media scrutiny, all pressures magnified by the very rule designed to protect continuity. The crown's endurance may one day hinge on whether the system allows the heir to step forward or continues to hold her in reserve. The institution remains vigilant, the heir remains poised, and the future is suspended, not by chance, but by design. The story continues, quietly, deliberately, as history waits to see whether timing itself will allow Princess Leonor to ascend, or whether the hidden rule will hold her in its protective, unyielding grasp.